Hello and welcome to When Grooms Get Engaged, the podcast about a guy's perspective to wedding planning from two guys that are currently trying to survive their own. I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris. And each week we will talk about how we navigated a different part of the wedding planning journey, what we learned in the process, and what maybe we wish we had done differently. So Steve, what are we talking about this week and how are we going to save some money?
So Chris, I thought we were talking about ways to save money this week. But as I was, outlining this, making my bullet points, I quickly realized that all it is just making sure you don't exceed your budget. Because there's really no saving money. Like, let's be honest. You're planning a wedding. People are coming. You're going to spend a ton of money. However, there's ways to explode your budget and there's ways to not explode your budget. And what we're going to talk about is how to make sure that you are on track. So, Chris, let me take it back. I lied. There is a way to save money. What is the number one way to save money on this process?
Could it be maybe the guest count?
Ding, 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 Chris. Invite less people. Unfortunately, I'm assuming your invites are out already. So this step is probably, it's a hope and a dream at this point.
Yeah. I mean, all your caterer and your bar package are all going to be based on a per person fee, more than likely. So by having less people show up, you are saving a lot of money unless you have some kind of minimum to meet, as we talked about last episode. So having less people and controlling your total guest count will ultimately save you a lot of money. So we had originally planned for around maybe 140 to 150. And our guest count is probably going to be closer to the 100 person mark,
Nice.
maybe like around 110. And ultimately, I think we feel that like it feels much better. It feels more intimate. And ultimately, like we're suddenly like, we're saving money per person now, right? Like there's this money that we had budgeted now that is potentially freed up by having less people. And, our thought process now is, do we just call that good? Do we just save that money? Or do we try to apply those funds that we had budgeted to like other parts of the wedding? And that's kind of what we're mulling over at this moment.
I mean, hey, it's definitely a nice issue to have versus the reverse, right? Where all of a sudden you find yourself 20 people over.
Yes.
And that'll do some damage to your budget. But Chris, I'm assuming you guys know what each person's going to cost you, right? Like food costs, drink costs, paper costs, transportation, all that. So like,
Absolutely.
Roughly how much you're saving by, those invites coming back as declines.
Have a robust spreadsheet and be tracking everything. We've also been tracking taxes and estimated gratuities that we're anticipating to pay. So we're trying to make sure we're tracking everything. So there was like no surprises down the road. We wanted to make sure we had a very clear idea of what we were paying for and what we could expect. So there was no hidden fees anywhere. So
do not
I recommend
taxes.
I recommend doing the same. Just try to keep track of all costs and estimates. And when you're building your estimates too, I would make sure that you're like rounding up or you're adding an extra like 10-15% just in case that vendor happened to be a little bit more expensive, or maybe you under budgeted or you had a bad estimate on certain figures. We had talked about this previously, but like looking at some averages for the city of Chicago that we had Googled, we're nowhere near like the estimates that we were getting for a lot of the vendors, like photographers and DJs. So just make sure that you're kind of you have a clear idea of what those costs may be. And not to go too far into this, but that's also where your wedding planner can help you, right? Like they can help you look over your budget and see if like maybe something looks off compared to, what they're usually seeing couples pay.
Yeah. So Chris, that's all great. As soon as you figure out what each person costs, like let's say each head is $300, between food, drinks, taxes, tips, whatever. All of a sudden, if 10 people can't come, that's $3,000 that's freed up in your budget. Or on the other side, if all of a sudden your mom's like, hey, I need to invite my friend and her family, that's 5 people. You're like, hey, mom, hold up. That's $1,500. Like, do we really need to invite these people? So it's good to know what that number is, what each person is costing you. So you can kind of, add or detract as you need to.
Yeah, unfortunately, you start when you're in the wedding planning process, you start seeing everything as dollar signs. It's completely natural.
Yeah,
But
you're not a terrible
you have
person.
to kind of be thinking in those terms because otherwise, yeah, that your budget that you originally set can easily balloon very, very easily, very, very quickly, and probably also like with just like one vendor. And then like you go over with one vendor, and then you have no room on any of the others. So
Hmm.
um, just kind of keep that in mind as you're working through the process.
Okay, so Chris, what are some ways to maybe save some money on food?
Yeah, so I mean, I would take an in-depth look at the menu that your caterer provides. There are going to be a number of upgrades, especially when it comes to like the main entrees and proteins. So, you know, you might want to have steak at your wedding and serve to your guests, but there's going to be a whole lot of different choices within that subset. Do you want to do filet mignon? You want to do some wagyu? That might
Mm.
cost you a pretty penny extra. So, you know, think about what's important to you. Obviously, you're going to have a tasting of these foods at some point. So try to taste as much as possible. And actually, fun fact, like I went back for a second tasting. I had to
Ooh,
pay for the
nice.
second tasting. It wasn't that expensive. It came out to maybe around $100 to kind of do a second tasting. But I think it was well worth it just to sample some other dishes that our caterer offered us to make sure that we were making the right decision.
Yeah, and this is where you need to know that you don't have to upgrade everything. Um, be cognizant of the venue. Like, let's say you're getting married, like RPM here in Chicago, they have an event space, you know? Um, and I would 100% trust upgrading to a ribeye at RPM events, because it's a steakhouse. But like, if you're Joe Schmo random banquet hall, like upgrading to a ribeye, like is that thing going to be overcooked, undercooked? Like, how long is it going to rest for? Is it going to even be good, like a good cut of meat? So like, know where you are and what you're upgrading. Because not everything has to be upgraded.
Not everything has to be upgraded and played to your venue strengths, right? So as you said, like if you're going to like a steakhouse, you probably have some great options and probably find a steal somewhere within that menu. But try to play to their strengths and what they do well. And obviously you're going to go in for a tasting. So make sure you just like sample everything that you possibly can so that you can make sure that they're cooking it right. Like that was another question. Like some of the steaks were a little inconsistent the first time around. So we wanted to go back the second time just to see like, was it just a fluke the first time or is this like actually how they cook it, for like medium rare steak? And that way we can make some tweaks and some adjustments from there.
Yeah, if you do want steak, a good, not super expensive upgrade option, if they have it, is a short rib or a like hanger steak, butcher's cut.
Mm-hmm.
But the hanger, they don't all have it. If they do, just know they probably know what they're doing. The short rib, I am seeing that on a lot more menus though, and that one's very forgiving and can also be delicious. Not as expensive as like a fillet or ribeye.
Definitely love that short rib.
Oh, it's so good. Another thing you can do is just limit how many options guests have to choose from.
Yep.
I know, Chris, like we've been to weddings where you'll have like 3 or 4 options, a couple proteins, a seafood, a vegetarian. But just so you know, as you add more options for guests, your costs do go up, unfortunately.
Yeah. So keep a tighter menu. That'll definitely be a way to save money. We ultimately went with the classic, 3, a beef, a chicken, and a vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
But just depending on your guests and what kind of vibe you're going for, you can spread out and add different options, maybe add a fish entree as well, but just know it's going to, again, balloon your budget. And I think for all of these things, I guess overarching, just to say now, is like, try to find the areas where you want to splurge a little bit or like focus your money and where you want to kind of cut back and save. Like what's okay to like have just kind of the basic options and where do I want to splurge, right? Do I want to have this amazing meal or do I want to have amazing decorations, right? It's kind of a push pull with all of these things. And if you pull on one thread, another one's going to end up a little bit short. So just kind of think about what the end experience for your guests you want to have.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's well said. And we're just kind of giving you some ideas on where you can maybe dial it back some, And then one final note on the food is how you're serving it, right? Plated versus family style versus buffet. Generally, plated and family style will have a similar cost because the staffing needs for both are essentially the same, right? However, buffet style is cheaper. And Chris, I think buffet style, I think also is limited to what they make for it, like food wise. Maybe I'm not sure. I'm just thinking like they probably choose items that are better sitting on a buffet tray versus like being served out individually.
Yeah. And then just think about how, again, the experience that you want your guests to have, like, they're probably gonna have to get up and then they have to like spend time like in line to get food in a buffet style. So, you might want to have maybe some other things going on, or maybe, I don't know, just plan for other things to like maybe have some entertainment during that time as well, whether it's like the band, DJ, or maybe something else.
That's a very good call. I have been to weddings that have been buffet style, and they have like one buffet station, and you could just hear the disgruntled people as they're waiting. Just the comments, and you're just like, oh man, these people are hangry.
Yep. They're waiting in line, and then something runs out while they're in line.
Oh my god, yeah. If they're looking forward to it, and it's out.
And then it's out, and then they're waiting on someone else to bring a dish and go back to the end of the lines. Yeah. So, again, there's a time and a place for buffet, but just know why that's why it's a cheaper option, right?
Yep.
With the logistics.
Moving on to drinks, Chris, I know you had mentioned on our last episode, essentially you being the bar. That's one way to save,
Yeah, for sure. So our venue and / caterer, all in one, provides bartenders. So, and we just can provide the drinks via Vinny's in Chicago. So we are working through them to order a number of different, alcoholic beverages wholesale, and they will be able to deliver it to our venue. And then anything that is not used at the end of the night that isn't refrigerated or opened, they're able to buy back. You can keep it, of course, but it helps save some money when they're able to buy it back from you. So like we're very excited. They've been very easy to work with, very accommodating. The only thing I wish that they had that they don't is they don't have Taiwan beer, unfortunately. So
oh really? Can you get it and like supply it for them? Is that an option?
Yeah, I just don't know where I would find it, because if Vinny's doesn't have it in Chicago, I don't really know another vendor that might. So,
Chris, you might have to fly to Taiwan, and just bring some back.
Just bring back a few cases. Yeah, I'm sure they won't care.
Yeah, right.
So,
no, that's great. If your vendor lets you do that, ask them and take advantage of it. Like I've known a few people who have done it, and like it's definitely saved them a ton of money.
Yeah, and then we also had to like rethink it too. So like now we're like saving a little bit more money too, because as we mentioned, like our guest count is kind of a little bit lower than we thought. And our alcohol list was definitely on the high side once we started going through the calculator. And that is something that is helpful. So like the Knot and some other resources, you can look up like a beverage calculator for weddings to kind of estimate like your guest count, how much you think they might drink, and then kind of like estimate like how much wine, how much hard liquor, how much champagne you might need, and that can kind of give you a helpful baseline to start from.
Is the first question, is your family Northern European? Then you need all the drinks, all the beer, all the alcohol.
God, the last Greek wedding we went to, I was definitely hammered at about like 3 or 4 a.m. because of the way they poured the drinks there.
Hey, I mean, just get ready. That's all I gotta say.
Round 2, right?
Round 2. Yeah, so you can save some money on that. You can also, I don't recommend this, but it's an option. You can do a cash bar versus open. You're gonna save a ton of money. Your guests won't enjoy it, and people will probably not really drink. And I'm not saying you need to drink to have fun, but if you feel like you're prohibited from drinking, you're just going to be in a worse mood. So if you can avoid it, just don't do a cash bar. Honestly, people just are not going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think, that's, again, I totally agree. I think you should do an open bar, but then the other place to save, right, with that is just like, you don't have to get the top shelf alcohol, right? There's lots of great quality budget brands for whether it's wine or vodka or whatever you want to serve. You can find, a cheap, solid alternative to that way, and then just limit the amount of selections that you have, right? And that'll also save on the cost. So maybe just have a couple different types of beer and maybe only one or two like hard liquors, right? And maybe like only like one or two wines. And you'll save a lot of money that way.
Yeah, I guarantee you the average person after the first or second drink cannot tell you the difference between Johnny Walker red or black, right? God forbid you go off from there to like gold or blue because you're super bougie. You know, like they can't tell the difference, especially because it uses a mixed drink anyway. So like even less of an ability to tell a difference. And Chris, like you mentioned, if you just limit the options, you don't have to have 50 bourbons. I mean, it's great if you can, but you don't need to. You just need like one or two good ones. Like that's fine. People will be happy. And then top shelf alcohol looks great, but yeah, after second drink, third drink, are you going to tell a difference? You know, it's freaking midnight. You're 6 drinks in. Like, you don't need to drink. I don't know. Is Grey Goose still like high in vodka these days? I don't even know.
I don't even know at this point.
I don't even drink vodka. I have zero idea. Yeah. But like, yeah, you don't need to drink that. Like, you can't tell a difference. Who cares? It's wasted on you.
Yeah, or again, ordering through Binny's, you're able to like have a bottle count, right? So you could have some higher end stuff that you want served at the beginning of the night, maybe like during the cocktail reception or cocktail hour, and then you can have them maybe switch to something that's a little bit more budget friendly later on in the evening once everyone's already kind of had one or two drinks and really can't be tasting the difference at that point.
Yeah, and I think you do is limit the drinking hours. You can have like an open bar at all times. Or you can have it only during like cocktail hour and the dance time. You can mix and match. But pretty much the fewer hours you provide the open bar, obviously the less it's going to cost you. Just be cognizant of, not doing it during cocktail hour because that doesn't seem like a good idea.
And I think we talked about this on our previous episode dealing specifically with this, but also know that the bar can be potentially either kind of a per person cost or it can also be based on consumption, and just kind of be wary of which way you go. Typically the per person kind of package, all-inclusive package, is going to be a better route than consumption unless you're really, really confident that you have a lot of light drinkers at your wedding.
Which, Chris, I feel like you're not confident.
I am not confident that we have light drinkers.
Yeah, definitely not. So this is some ways to kind of like, keep your budget in line on drinks. Moving down to another, edible consumable item, desserts. If your venue lets you bring in your desserts, do it. I know this is especially important for like Chris, our events that are like ethnic, like having Greek desserts brought in. We go to like a Greek bakery, we grab a ton of trays of these things, some baklava, some diplas, some, freaking lokumadas that they make them like great for the actual venue. So definitely ask that. Like, you don't need to just have the venue give you their own desserts. Maybe they're not even that good. Who knows? Yeah,
and there's also like so many hidden costs in weddings. So like another one that I'll bring up is like our wedding planner was like, well, are you going to like buy or have any special like cake cutting utensils?
Oh.
And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, like some people like they have like, maybe some families have heirlooms and that's cool. That's great. But just like, do you want to buy, like engraved or like, special like cake cutting tools? And I think we were both just like, no, hell no. We're not going to waste money on like cake cutting tools. So again, just like there's random things like that where you'll find out you can save money. But maybe it's important to you. So
maybe it is. Like there's ways to spend money, but if you're not getting your own cake cutting tools, you should also probably go to Costco and get a sheet cake to give to people.
Yes, big savings there.
Let's be honest. Like Chris, I love dessert. You know this, but even by the time the cake comes out, I'm like, do I even need to eat this? Like, I'm full. You give me this like giant slice of cake. I can't tell you what kind of cake it is because it's dark at that point. I'm either tipsy or drunk, like who knows? And, I might take a bite, but like, you don't need to waste a $1,500 cake on me. Just get me a Costco sheet cake. I promise you, I cannot tell a difference. So that's definitely a way that people save money. I don't know if that's still happening. I thought Costco like stopped it a couple years ago. I think I read an article. Chris, what are you guys doing for that?
So we actually have a smaller cake provided by our venue, and then we are doing kind of a dessert assortment, kind of a dessert table with coffee and tea for us. So like we have a kind of a lot of different little mini desserts that we went with instead of like a big cake. You know, I've always found wedding cake to be very dissatisfying. So we wanted to go with some like smaller, like higher end desserts. So like, you know, macaroons.
Oh my God, I love a macaroon. Macaroons are just so... The French, man. The French when it comes to cooking.
They know what they're doing when it comes to pastries, right?
they're stuck-up assholes, but man, they're pastries. And their food. Ooh, chef's kiss. Yeah, so this is just something to think about on dessert. On vendors, Chris, we should talk about this last week a little bit. Band versus DJ. DJ will be cheaper, right? And you generally will also have more control of the music. Because I know bands, they want to show off their talent. You know, they will have certain songs or certain genres that they excel at, and they will be comfortable playing those. So, yes, you can give them a list of songs. Yes, you could do this, you could do that. But, like, they're also people, you know, they may want to do something else. Like, I've been to weddings where the band just went off. They just did their own thing. Like, It was great, but, you know, like, maybe it wasn't exactly what the couple wanted, just something to consider. But a DJ, generally, you will have a lot more control. And the good thing about a DJ is that, you know, the average quality will be much more consistent than a band. Like a band, maybe at the top end, you might get like a magical experience, but like a bad band will be bad.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Like you just got to know, like, you know, if they had infinite range and could do every song, they wouldn't be playing, you know, they wouldn't be performing in weddings. So
yeah, exactly.
Performing in weddings for a reason. And they have a range and they have a certain set list and they can do certain things. So within that window, they could probably kill it. But if you try to have them go outside of that, it's probably going to be a little bit of a strain, or it might not be exactly what you want. You know, if you have the money to spend on a band and that's kind of like your focus, you know, there's a lot of, I think, bands, like we went to a wedding recently that actually had like, you know, 3 kind of lead singers, right? All with a slightly different kind of tone and tenor so that they could perform a lot of different songs from all different genres. So that was something cool to see and maybe something you could look into. Again, it's going to be expensive, but if that's where you want to put your focus, you can definitely make it happen.
Just one thing to be aware of, bands also have additional vendor costs associated with food and drinks.
Yep.
And Chris, this band that you're mentioning, they had like what, 12 members?
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the food and drink for that band alone was another like $2,000 at this wedding.
Exactly. So, you know, instead of having a 12-piece band, have a 6-piece band. There you go. Yeah. Instant savings.
Cut down on some people, you know. Do you need 12 people? Let's be honest. It looks impressive, but
having a live band can be cool just for the live music aspect, but just know they're probably not able to perform exactly 100% what you want. So there's going to be some give and take there. Whereas a DJ is just kind of like they're able to play anything. So slightly different experience, but you know, could potentially be better, especially if you have a wide range of music that you want performed.
Yeah, Chris, this is actually kind of, we're doing both in Greece. We have like 2 guitarists for like the welcome. When people come in for the cocktail hour, we only have for like 2 hours, and then we're doing a band for the rest of the night. Because I think it'd be fun to have that little like live experience, but like I don't want them for the full, you know, 8-9 hours of the wedding is.
Right.
Let's see. And then also, depending on your size, how many photographers do you realistically need? So, Chris, I don't know how many photographers you guys are getting. We have 2. But we could have gone with 1 if we decided to go down. That would have saved us some money. Just be cognizant of how big your space is, how many guests you have. And like, if you have 50 people and 3 photographers, like, do you really need that? You know, that's something to like kind of question.
Yeah, it all comes down to how many people you have at the wedding and how much you have to capture. But, you know, I think let's just call it, if we call it for the average size wedding of like 100 to 150, you probably should have 2 photographers. You just want to have that backup and those secondary shots. And also, So for us, we are not doing a first look. So, seeing Catherine will be I'll be seeing her for the first time in her wedding dress at the wedding, right? So we're not doing anything prior. So we will be doing pictures separately throughout the day. And so that's another reason why we have two photographers, is because one will stay with her and the other one will be with me and the guys.
Nice.
Including you.
We're going to get some good ass pictures.
Damn right. We'll look good.
Ooh. And then, maybe they won't see the light of day. We'll see. Chris, another way to kind of keep your budget in check is just being very handy. A lot of do it yourself.
Put your family to work.
Oh my God, dude, I know we are. So if you're handy, right, you can order a ton of stuff cheap off Temu. And like this stuff comes from China, and it's not in packs of 1 or 2. It's in packs of like 100 and 500, So it's pointless in a day-to-day thing. But for a wedding, we have to make like a lot of stuff for a lot of people. It is perfect for it. So if you're handy and if you have an eye for these things, yeah, you can save a ton of money, doing this yourself versus going on Etsy.
Yeah, so I think this is where, we definitely fell into. So Facebook Marketplace, definitely a very handy tool to find, slightly used wedding decorations that you can, reincorporate into your wedding. So we are trying to save on florals, right? We don't see the point of spending so much money for flowers when they're just going to like die the next day, right? You can't really like keep that or take that with you or anything like that. So we are going the candle route. So we bought a lot of hurricane vases, floating candles.
Wait, a lot of what? Hurricane vases?
Hurricane vases, like the big, like tall ones, like basically like water vases.
That have a name? That's weird.
Yeah. They're just like really big. And so like our centerpieces will be more candle focused than it is floral focused. For some interesting, lighting effects. So we went on Facebook Marketplace and we're able to like just find things at a fraction of the cost. So like even like the florist, like later once we like we're looking at a florist, the quote for like hurricane vases, was just like so much more than just like buying it outright and then potentially being able to resell that later, right? Because we will like resell all of these things on the marketplace again. So definitely look for that. Facebook Marketplace, can't recommend it enough. There's a lot of used items there that are on the cheap. So definitely look there for like a signage. Again, for us, it was like hurricane vases, like mirrors for the centerpieces. And even you can probably find some like faux florals that look really nice on there too.
And just a word of caution. This is great, but this is not a do it the night before kind of thing.
Oh, no. So, that's a perfect thing. And I'll just jump in here. So like we had talked about it with our venue and also like our wedding planner. So our wedding planner is able to like do a heavy lift and help like set up a lot of this stuff ahead of time. Otherwise you would have to have family members do it. Just with like pre-set up and everything, this takes time. So you just be cognizant of what you need to get done. Also, if you're able to have your venue for like 2 days, right? Like if you're able to come in the day before to like set up anything or like do like chair covers and different things like that the night before, I would definitely say that's like a critical piece. Like if you can get that, take advantage of it and try to do as much as you can the day before.
Chris, that's actually a great point. Figure out when you have the space from, right? Like when it starts and when it ends. Like we're getting married in the villa that we're staying, so like we have no issues. But I know some spaces, like they're very tight on the times that you have to actually get ready and how soon you got to be out. So definitely figure that out. That's a good call out.
And then also, it's like the Grand Canyon rule, though. Like, when you go down into the canyon, just realize you have to come back up, right? So like whatever you set up, you also have to tear down and make sure you're out of there by a certain point. So like if your family members were helping you set up a lot of this stuff and, it wasn't through a vendor, you also probably are not going to be in the greatest state of mind to like want to like to help tear down stuff. So just realize like there's also that tear down phase and you got to be out of a venue by a certain point. Just kind of make sure that you're accounting for the end of the night after everyone's been, eating, dancing and drinking.
Oh my God, Chris, I was at a wedding. This guy, and he was like we had a great time, but I was staying behind a little after to kind of make sure like all the stuff goes away. And one of his friends was like, "Okay, man, what do you need help with?" I'm like, "I just get that." And he's like, "Oh man, I don't know, I'm getting stressed out." And I'm like, "This is not helping." So if people are gonna help you take stuff away, make sure it's people that do not get stressed,
Yeah.
because that's just gonna make everything so much worse. It's so annoying.
Try to have a plan ahead of time, like, try to have like the boxes and everything ready to go so that you can just like put everything away, easily, and it's organized for, either pick up later that day or for the next morning. So just kind of, again, while you're sober and have all the full perspective of the day, don't, just make sure you have a plan in place for those decorations you might be doing yourself.
And this is where it's good to delegate family and kind of put someone in charge. Like I know my sister is so good at these things. Like if I put her in charge, like I know it's someone I can trust to like get it done, you know? So this is where family comes in handy to kind of like do like help you lift some of these like tasks off, just make sure they get done. Sorry, Chris, is something else?
Nope, that's good.
Oh, you actually mentioned flowers. One thing I kind of want to bring up is I've been seeing this trend a lot lately. I don't know when it started, but people go to Trader Joe's and just order a metric ton of flowers,
or
and
Costco.
create their own like table settings. And this is interesting because you're going to save a lot of money. Obviously, you have to make it yourself, but something to consider if you have like an eye for design and you're good at putting these things together, because you can get a lot of different flowers at Trader Joe's. Yes, you're not going to be able to get like something super specific, just what's ever in season, but like you will save money.
You'll save money definitely, but I just could not imagine putting together like 15 floral arrangements, centerpieces for the tables, plus like maybe like a wedding arch or wedding altar, plus cocktail hour and everything like that. So,
Chris, could you imagine saving $10,000?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, then you just imagine doing this yourself at Trader Joe's.
Yeah, if you have that specific vision, this is definitely a route you can go. But I would also say like maybe try to do it ahead of time on the small scale, just to see how long it exactly takes you to like put together some things, so that when you're doing it, because you can't really do it that far in advance with florals because they're going to die, right? They have to be fresh. So just know that you're probably able to do it maybe a couple days beforehand, but you're not going to be able to do it like 2 weeks ahead of time. And then something that's also kind of eye-opening for me was faux florals, fake flowers are actually like almost just as expensive as regular flowers, surprisingly.
Chris, you mentioned this. I still don't believe you. Like that makes no sense to me.
I don't know. Like again, through the florists and like a few that we interviewed, it wasn't just one. Like they were around the same cost. Like you were not saving any significant amount of money.
That's insane. But yeah, Trader Joe's, think about it.
You might be able to find some nice stuff, like again, like wholesale that you might be able to find online that might end up ultimately being cheaper. But like ordering faux florals through a florist, generally you're not saving a lot. So again, there's going to be a lot more of a DIY component to it that you should be aware of.
Yeah, just in general, DIY, yes, you're going to save money if you're good at this, or you have people that can help that are good at this. Otherwise, you might save money, but it may also look bad. So just consider your talent and your skills.
Try to be honest with yourselves.
Try to be honest. And then one final thing that you can do is, Chris, you mentioned this, lots and lots of candles.
Yep.
Candles create great ambiance, and they are a great supplement to flowers, right? Both lack of flowers or just flowers in general. They pretty much always look good. Amazon, you can get a ton of candles, right? Temu, we mentioned that, ton of candles. They're not super expensive. I'm assuming again,
I said it already. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like Facebook Marketplace and then also Goodwill, like you will find a lot of good stuff on the cheap at both those places that are probably even better than Amazon or Temu.
So how much does? Okay, so I was thinking Goodwill as I was talking, but like you're not going to get the same type of candle. Like, does that matter?
So yeah, it just depends like how much you need of one thing, right?
Yeah.
You'll generally be able to find sets, but you're not going to be able to find like 40 of the same thing, right? But you might be able to find 4, 6, or 8 of the same thing. So if you're okay with like a little bit of mixing and matching, it could work out.
Yeah. Just one thing to note on that, mixing and matching works if everything is mixing and matching.
Yes.
If just one thing is mixing and matching, it looks super obvious. So be cognizant of how much you have to mix and match.
Yeah. Play around, take pictures, and get inspiration from like, Instagram and stuff to see what other people are doing. One other thing too is, follow your venue on like Instagram and like social media. So you can see like what other couples are doing in that space. Maybe it can give you ideas as well of like what you want and maybe where you can save some money as well and get inspiration from what someone else has done.
Chris, this is such a good idea, but I would just say this is how you spend money because you see what someone else does and you're like, damn, I don't have that. And you're like, okay, how do I
just got to be like, nope, good for you. Next.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you. Like we
congratulations, you just wasted $20,000.
Oh my God, I know. We follow our bartender in Greece, and one of the things they do is a espresso martini tower instead of a champagne tower.
That's cool.
So we're like, I guess we need that. There's another $1,000 or whatever an espresso martini tower costs. Who knows? Or we'll follow our photographer, and they have couples that like show up to the wedding or the welcome party on a boat. And we're like, I guess we need that too. And like, none of these things save us money. They just cost us money. So yes, it's good to see what people do, but just know you might end up having to also put it in your budget because it looks super cool.
Yeah. Just realize that other people are going to spend a lot more money on certain things and it's going to look different. So you just have to accept that. Like we saw in our venue, they did these like centerpieces that started off thin from the middle of the table, then exploded high above the table, probably like 6 or 7 feet into like flower clouds.
Those are like $700 a pop, probably.
Yeah,
something obscene like
more,
that.
Yeah. And then they're like hanging from the ceiling, and that was like times whatever, like 18 tables. I'm just like, wow, this looks amazing. Don't get me wrong, this is spectacular. I'm like, that was probably like 10-15 grand just that, and not even factoring in the other florals they potentially had at the wedding.
Yeah, or you could do candles. Just putting it out there.
Any last words?
No, these are just kind of some things to think about as you're start making decisions on each one of your specific vendors. Like, you don't have to upgrade everything. Not everything has to be super expensive. Some things are fine just going an average take on, and make up the budget somewhere else. But just know that each area you can choose, a lower cost option, and don't be afraid to do that if it's not super important to you. Just real quick, Chris, one thing absolutely do not save money on, spend as much as you can, is the midnight snack. I don't care. I will die on this hill. It's the best bang for buck. You get like burgers, fries, hot dogs, pizza, whatever for like $6 a person. Like, come on. It's unreal.
After a full night,
dancing and drinking, you save someone's life with that.
Yeah, it is the most important meal of the day.
So as you're setting your budget, set aside the $10 a person, whatever the hell it costs, for the midnight snack. Do not cut that. It is the dumbest thing to cut. I will die on this hill. It is the best thing at every wedding I've been to that's had it. Just please, for the love of all that is great, make sure to include your midnight snack.
Listen to the man.
Oh, okay, Chris. That's all I got.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. See you next episode.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Steve. Bye.
All right, bye.